Welcome into the Yards After College podcast powered by KSLSports.com. After Sam and I took a little bye to enjoy the Thanksgiving holiday, the day that is meant to celebrate family, football, just food, delicious food.
Mm-hmm.
Sam, I need to hear about your Thanksgiving real quick before we dive into week 13. Did you have a good Thanksgiving last week? Did you enjoy some Mountain Dew? Did you enjoy some turkey? What did you do with the fam?
It was a good Thanksgiving. Not to go into too many details, but it was a little stressful this year for other reasons. However, I will say this: the turkey, outstanding again. I mean, if you're not, and I've been doing this for several years now. I know probably a lot of our listeners are into the smoking of turkeys and stuff, but if you're not brining and spatchcocking and smoking your turkey, you're doing it wrong. I know you get delicious turkey out of the oven and all that, but I'm just telling you, a nice 12 to 24-hour brine, a good spatchcock where you cut the backbone right out of there, you flatten that thing out on your smoker, and it cooks a lot quicker, and it's just so good. Yeah, we were blessed with delicious food again, for sure. For sure, Kyle.
Making me hungry there. I love a good time out on the smoker, Sam. Some smoked meat is hard to beat. So I'm glad you had a good little barbecue sesh for Thanksgiving, and we had some good football as well. And we had good football this week as well for the local players in the NFL, and we'll talk about them a bunch today. Let's kick things off this week, Sam, with your 3 stars, because I feel like there's some obvious guys that we need to talk about this week. There's a bunch of reports coming out today. Zach Wilson news, which didn't know if we would have any until the offseason, but here we are, week 13, week 14. Got some more Zach Wilson news after only a couple of weeks of him on the bench. And so we've got that to talk about, but let's kick things off with your 3 stars, and then we'll go from there. What do you say?
Let's do it. You say that there's probably some obvious guys, which there probably are. However, I will throw a curve, as you know I like to do with the 3 stars. And here's why. Because we, for our podcast, took a week off. NFL football didn't take a week off. So I'm going to kind of do the last couple of weeks here just for my 3rd star, because this is a guy that deserves recognition that has not received a bunch of it yet from our podcast this year, but 100% deserves all the recognition that I'm about to give him. So 3rd star.
3rd star.
The one and only former Timpview Thunderbird, former University of Utah Ute. It's Britton Covey. This is a guy who deserves something. Now, this week, I think he only had 1 punt return. It might have been a fair catch even. He had no yards in punt return yardage. However, go back to the week before. I thought it was another great week. Not only, let's just talk about his whole season in general. He leads the league in punt return average. It's like 15 something yards per return, and a good punt return is 7, 8, 9, 10 yards. And Britton Covey's getting 15 plus just about every single time he gets the ball and has an opportunity to return a punt. So he's been getting a lot of credit from his teammates for being critical in their wins. That game against the Bills, he was given specific credit by I think it was Jason Kelsey who said he was critical in them getting the good field position to start to be able to go down and win the game on some of those drives. So Britton Covey, let's shout him out here on this podcast for our Yards After College podcast. He deserves a star this week, and I'm giving it to him.
Yeah, a couple of days ago, I wrote a story on Covey. Nick Sirianni had a nice segment on an answer in one of his press conferences last week where he talked about Britton and said that they consider him a weapon for their team. And the one of the reporters in Philadelphia that asked him about Covey was like, you cut him twice. And he's like, yeah, thanks for bringing it up, kind of a thing. It was pretty funny. But Yeah, Sirianni, he was making a push for Covey to be a Pro Bowl player, an All-Pro guy on special teams. Said he might be the best returner in the NFL, and statistically, he's up there. So, really fun to see him have success, especially after, was cut before the season last year, was cut during training camp before the season started this year. They signed him back to the practice squad both times, and then gets elevated to the active roster and sign him to the regular NFL contract. But yeah, super exciting to see Britain have success in the league.
All right, so number 2 star this week. This one isn't going to be a shocker, but here it is.
Second star.
Second star for my week, our first week of December of the NFL football season, is the one and only former Orem High Tiger, former BYU Cougar. It is Puka Nacua, the wide receiver for the Rams. Had that 70-yard touchdown early in the game on Sunday. What a beautiful throw, right on the money. Great hands, great catch, great speed. I mean, that play alone shows that if you get Puka in stride, he's untouchable, uncatchable. And what a beast he has been in his rookie season, going over 1,000 yards for the year on that catch, Colin. I know you know that, but I had to do a little digging. I was talking with Jeremiah Jensen, my fellow sports anchor for KSL Sports Live, about that. And I was asking, when was the last time a BYU player had a 1,000-yard season? And instantly my thought went to it, got to be Todd Christensen, right? But I had to look. Austin Collie, I think, had a 600 or 700-yard year. Dennis Pitta, Chad Lewis, they both hit about 700 yards in a season once. But it indeed was Todd Christensen in 1986, the last BYU player to have 1,000 yards in the NFL. He did it 3 times. Now Puka's right there with him. And, it's not that shocking. BYU hasn't cranked out a lot of pass catchers in the NFL over the years. I think they're starting to maybe get a little better reputation in that regard. However, what Puka has done is not only remarkable from the standpoint of former Cougars in the NFL, but just as a rookie in the NFL this year, what he has been, surprising everyone, superseding every exceeding every expectation that may have been had for him this year. He is way ahead of that and has become one of the best receivers in the NFL, not just the best rookies.
The crazy part, Sam, is he's got 5 games to go. And he's
right.
I talked about this on my little social media recap video on our KSL Sports Instagram and TikTok feeds if you want to go check it out last night. The fact that he is 6th in the NFL right now in receiving yards. He's top 10 in receptions. He has been banged up. He missed part of the game yesterday with they said it was cramping initially, and then they said it was a rib injury. Comes back in the second half, ends up immediately having a block. It's just funny how he's injured and he's just battling through it. Ends up getting a game ball from Sean McVay after the game from just the toughness that he showed it, and had an outstanding game again as the Rams blew out the Browns there. Yeah, I just it's just funny to me because like everybody kind of like expected Puka Nacua to be an NFL talent, right? Like coming even out of high school, it was like he's going to play in the NFL. Like he just kind of had the body type and the talent and skill. But I just love seeing people on social media like, oh yeah, like people in Utah or BYU fans knew this. Like nobody expected him to do this as a rookie. Like people might have been like, oh yeah, he's going to be a decent NFL player, good NFL player. Like you said, exceeding expectations. Nobody saw him hitting 1,000 yards through the first 13 weeks of the season. It's remarkable to see, and I just think that he's going to continue to impress. And the fact that he was kind of making his run while Cooper Kupp was out with injury was all more impressive because people started to zone in on him as like the number 1 target for Matthew Stafford. Now that Kupp is back on the field, like he's just even more of a threat. I don't know. I'm really excited to see how his career continues to blossom because statistically he's a top 5, top 10 wide receiver, and that's him as a rookie. I think that really the debate for offensive rookie of the year is only between him and CJ Stroud. It's probably going to go to Stroud just because of the quarterback situation with Stroud, right? Like, I mean, quarterbacks tend to win these types of awards. MVP is another one, right? Like, there's not a lot of players that don't win MVP that are non-quarterbacks, right? So it's interesting that he's been able to put up these numbers as a rookie. I want to see that continue on, year 2, year 3. I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but consistency is going to be the big thing for Puka moving forward in his career, because right now he's setting the world on fire. It's pretty cool.
It's been awesome to see 77 catches so far. That alone is just quite impressive too. And like you said, 5 more games to go. So can't wait to see what he ends up doing through the rest of the year. All right, Kyle, my number 1 star. This guy, like, look, before I just start raving about him, let's just do this. Number 1 star.
First star.
I probably, if we did do this podcast last week, he probably would have been my number 1 star last week too. I mean, Jordan Love, how do we not give him all the praise that he deserves after what he did in primetime television on a national audience against everyone's favorite Kansas City Chiefs, Super Bowl champ, Patrick Mahomes. He outplayed Mahomes, and I know quarterbacks don't go against each other, but you kind of compare head to head. He outplayed Patrick Mahomes on primetime television. The way he started the game, completing something like 14 of his first 15 passes, somewhere along those lines. I know that number is not totally correct, but he finished with 25 of 36, 267 yards, 3 touchdowns, a passer rating of 118.6. The former Utah State Aggie is in his lane, and he is slinging it here in the NFL. He seems to have found his groove. His last 5 games, I tweeted about this last night, but his last 5 games, 4 of which have been wins. You want to go the last 2 games, especially his last 2 games have been on national television. He had the Thanksgiving game that he played outstanding in, but his last 5 games, 4 wins. These are the passer ratings in the 5. We'll go backwards: 118.6, 125.5, 108.5. The loss was a 71.8, and then 115.5. Like I said, me and passer rating. I love that statistic. I feel like it is a pretty accurate statistic in rating a quarterback in the NFL. And then he's got 11 touchdowns in those 5 games to just 2 interceptions. And he's, let's just do some quick math: 2, 4, 6, 8, 11. He's about 1,400 yards passing over those 5 games too. So Jordan Love, he's found his rhythm, and I hope he stays in that rhythm for the rest of the year, because he's got the Packers suddenly in playoff contention in the NFC.
Yeah, you mentioned the passer rating there, Sam. I think it's key to note, like, you kind of want to be around like 100, right? 100's like, that's good. That's a good quarterback performance. And so to have 4 out of the last 5 be in that plus 100 range, it wasn't like, it wasn't his best game, right? In that 4-point loss to the Steelers, but he threw a couple touchdown passes. He threw for almost 300 yards in that game. It was the 2 interceptions that really put that number down. And obviously you don't want to lose the game, but it wasn't like they got blown out or anything, right? And so really, if you look back since, the start of November, he's been playing an above average, a top, 10, 15 type of quarterback performance each of these games. We talked about him early on in the season, how he kind of came out of the gates just ripping it, 6 touchdowns, 0 picks in his first 2 games, and then really kind of went into that slide, and people were starting to write him off. And we talked about this, Sam, and I feel I have to put this out there. I did not expect him to play well this season. I'm just going to start by stating that I thought that he would struggle. And so when he came out and he had, those 2 games to start the season where he was playing really well, I'm like, hey, he's proven me wrong here. I did not see that coming. And then he kind of regressed to the mean of what I thought he would be. But even in that slump, Sam, you and I talked about this multiple weeks, where we're like, we saw people in the state of Utah who were writing him off and saying he was a bust. And we were like, hold your horses. Like, the sample size is too small here. We cannot just all of a sudden be like, Jordan Love is not a good quarterback. Like, we just don't know yet, right? Like, give him some time. Let's see how things play out. The GM said the final 10 games of the season were going to be super important for Jordan Love moving forward. Since he said that, he has just been tearing it up. He's been awesome.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Even though I didn't expect him to play well this season, and I'm fine admitting that, I will say I do feel like we were vindicated a little bit from our comments, a month or so ago where we were saying, hey, let's give him some time. Let's see how things play out. Really, really just impressive to see how he's kind of bounced back amidst all the pressure, right? Like the Jordan Love succeeding Aaron Rodgers, the national television games, like everything that's kind of been put on Jordan Love's shoulders and building for the last 3.5 years. I love to see him come out and play well, because the pressure that he's been under this season has got to be immense. I'm sure that he felt a lot of relief, especially last night. I'm sure he was just loving life, right? Going up to fans after the game, autographs, all that kind of stuff. But that Thanksgiving Day game you were talking about,
Yeah,
that performance, he just against Lions team, I believe they were 8-2 going into that game, leading the division. To follow up that kind of performance with what he did against the Super Bowl champion Chiefs on Sunday Night Football, like it's stuff that is really cool to see. Not only if you're like a Packers fan, but just like on a smaller scale here in Utah as a local guy coming out of the state. Just impressive to see. And I know I'm rambling here, but I wanted to say, like, it's pretty cool that we're seeing Jordan Love have the success that he's having at the level that he's doing it at.
and they may have. The first time I heard it was Sunday Night Football. But is the love shove a thing now? The Eagles have the tush push. The Packers have the love shove. Come on now.
Yeah,
I love it. Anyway,
it's true. Sam, with that, if you don't mind, I'd like to interrupt this program and give you Kyle's fun fact of the week, because it ties into Jordan Love. It ties into Jordan Love. Now, I'm going to need some help here, because this dates me. I'm younger, and so I didn't see this man play. I might have seen him on TV. I was a youngster though, and I wanted to pull up. First off, it's a little bit of a tricky question. I'll throw like a two-part question at you for the fun fact of the week, Sam. Do you know how many Utah State quarterbacks there have been that have played in the NFL? That's the first part of the question. And the second question, this is really the fun fact of the week part of it. Who was the last quarterback from Utah State to play in the NFL? Before Jordan Love, that is.
Quarterback. How many quarterbacks have played in the NFL? And who was the last quarterback? Is that the two questions there?
That's correct. Yeah, from Utah State.
Now, did they have to finish their career at Utah State? They probably did. Okay, you've got you. Look, I think Chucky Keaton was en route, but he did not. I'm trying to remember, because you said maybe when you were a kid. I'm trying to remember some of these guys that were slinging it in maybe the 80s and early 90s, and I know they had some decent
so I'll give throwers. You this. His career went from 1981 to 1999, but the last year that he was on an active
in the
last
NFL.
Year he was in the NFL was the last year he was on an active roster was 1995.
Ooh, I should know this. I feel like I should know this.
I can give you the team too.
I want to say, and I know this is wrong because he went to Weber State, but my mind wants me to say Jamie Martin, right? But that's not right. Give me the team. This Packers. Is going badly for me.
The Packers. No. This is great. This is exactly how it's supposed to go, because I looked at this list and I was not in the realm of being able to be like
did he end his career with the Packers?
So he last was on the active roster with the Packers.
And what year was that again?
95. He was also on the off season and practice squad stuff with the Bengals and the Patriots to end his career in 97 and 98. But started off with the Chiefs in 1981. Also played in the USFL for a time.
I bet I know this answer, but I'm gonna say you've got me stumped. Go ahead and spill the beans. Tell me who it is.
All right. So, including Jordan Love, if I'm counting this correctly, there have been 6 quarterbacks from Utah State that have played in the National
Okay.
Football League. Okay. The last player to play in the NFL before Jordan Love from the Aggies, and I'm gonna try and pronounce the name correctly because I think this is how you pronounce it, but if not, I apologize to the family and everybody of Aggie Nation. Is it Bob Gaiano? Is that how you pronounce that? It's Bob Gaglione. Gagliano is how it kind of is spelt. You heard that name, Sam? The Goose?
The Goose, Gagliano. I should know this, but I don't.
I don't
It's
either.
don't
I
know
was
him.
fascinated by this.
Wow.
Played for Utah State. He was also a quarterback. He began his college career at Glendale Community College, transferred, played at Utah State, was drafted in 1981 in the 12th round, and played for the Chiefs, the 49ers, Buccaneers, Oilers, Colts, Lions, Chargers, Falcons, Packers, Bengals, and Patriots. Long career there, and also spent some time in the USFL, like I said. So there you have it. Bob Gaiano is, I think, how you pronounce the name there, Sam. Crazy. Something you learn every week on the Kyle's
There
Fun
you
Fact
go.
of the Week, right?
So is it safe to say Jordan Love is the best Utah State Aggie quarterback in NFL history? I don't know. I
I
don't.
would say the fact that I didn't know anybody else, I'm going to give it to you there. I'm going to say that it is. But like I said,
Perfect.
I was 5 years old the last time that man played on an active roster. So it's a little hard for me to say without having some knowledge there, right?
There you go. That's a good. I like that fact. That's a good one. That you stumped me. You probably stumped a lot of listeners out there too.
I like going into the deep dives for the fun fact of the week, Sam. I felt like I started things off a little too easy on you with the Steve Young, Troy Aikman one a few weeks ago. So wanted to throw a little curveball at you. But yeah, let's before we wrap things up, Sam, let's kind of turn our heads in this conversation towards Zach Wilson. Let's actually take a quick break real quick, and then we'll talk about Zach on the other side. What do you say? All right, welcome back to the Yards After College podcast powered by KSLSports.com. As we said before the break, wanted to talk a little Zach Wilson. Now, there's just chaos every week with the New York Jets, Sam. I put this out on Twitter X this morning. I said the Jets aren't a serious franchise. And the reason why I said it is because the last 2 weeks they've started Tim Boyle as their quarterback. Yeah,
My
yesterday
goodness.
against the Falcons, who aren't a great team, but they're a decent team, I guess. They ended up benching Boyle in the middle of their loss. Ended up losing the game by a score, and they ended up putting Trevor Siemian in, former Denver Broncos quarterback. I know your affection for Trevor
Yeah.
Siemian there, Sam. But yeah, it's crazy. They've just continued this quarterback carousel, and Zach has been inactive the last 2 weeks. And I think that after obviously making that decision, it's like, okay, like yeah, his time in New York's over with. It's done with. We kind of expected that. If they turn, to somebody else, it was the writing was on the wall, right? Like Zach's not going to play for the Jets anymore. But yesterday, after the game, it kind of came out that, hey, maybe they're mulling a quarterback decision. Anyway, this morning, let me just run through this for you real quick, and then I'll get your take on it. The Athletic reported that the Jets wanted to make a switch at quarterback from Diana Rossini and Zach Rosenblatt. The team is leaning towards Zach Wilson, is the report, but Zach is reluctant to step back into that starting role, and that the team is hoping that Zach would change his mind. Another report from the Athletic said that if Zach was to be asked directly by the Jets to start, that he would agree to that. Robert Saleh came out during his press conference and answered some questions about those reports. He said that if Zach was reluctant to play, he wouldn't be there, and that he had a conversation with Zach earlier today on Monday, December 4th, where Zach said that he wants to start. He believes he's the best quarterback in the room, best quarterback on the team. Rossini also came out and said that Aaron Rodgers reached out to Zach Wilson and advised him to return to the starting role, but Zach remained apprehensive, quote, due to perceived injury risk. Sam, what do you make of all of it? Should Zach start again? Should he say, hey, I'm done with you guys. You wrote me off. Obviously, I wasn't the only issue with the team because they've lost, 5 straight now, and Zach hasn't played in the llast 2 games. They're a mess. What do you think, Sam?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack with this whole situation, right? I mean, it's obvious, more obvious now than ever before to anyone who may have doubted, from the media, from the fan base, from within the organization, the coaching staff, teammates, if there were any doubters of Zach, that someone else could step in and cure it all. It's obvious, clearly obvious now, that the problems with the Jets offense is not just the quarterback. However, I'll preface it. I'll just add this little sliver to it. If they had a better option at quarterback, could they have maybe fixed a few things? Possibly. Is a healthy Aaron Rodgers, does that fix things? I don't know. Possibly. But there are serious other problems that need to be addressed. And I think some of it has to do with play calling and the coaching as well. Start there. Point the finger there first before you just rip apart your roster. Anyway, yeah, it's clearly obvious that the best quarterback on that team right now is Zach Wilson. All right, so how should Zach feel about this? Should he want to play? Yes, I think so. Zach needs to look at this as an opportunity to again redeem himself still as a good teammate, a solid teammate. When the team is saying, "Hey, we need you," even though it looks kind of like they're backtracking, right? It looked like they had written Zach completely off, ready to completely move on from him and be done with Zach altogether. Now they're realizing, you know, we need him to finish this season. Zach can go a long way for him to say, you know what, I accept the challenge. Let me get back out there. I do want to play. I do want to get better. I want to lead this team to some wins. Keeping Aaron Rodgers as an ally, if those reports are true that Aaron Rodgers reached out to him, encouraging him to return, that's great. When the off season comes, I think you hit. So yes, return to action. Get back out there on the field. Perceived injury, I don't know. You get sacked so many times as a Jets quarterback. That might be a legit reason why he may not want to get back out there. But I think it's in his best interest for his career, even beyond New York, to get back out there. Then you hit the off season. Then you can start to have those types of conversations of, hey, you know what? I don't really want to be here anymore. This wasn't a good situation for me. Wasn't a good situation for you guys. Let's both part ways. Let's move on in our own directions. Give me new life. Give me a fresh start somewhere else. Let's move on. I think you address that in the offseason. If Zach Wilson starts to take that stance now, I think it just becomes a bad look for him again. So that's kind of my overall thought there. And then would he want to return next year to do another year with Aaron Rodgers? Possibly. But I just overall, I really feel like finish off this season, hit the off season, and then start to have those honest, candid discussions about getting out of New York with the organization to see if they can't trade him or release him or do whatever they have to do to let him have an opportunity to move on.
The only thing I'm going to say on this, Sam, and I'll be short because we're running out of time, and I know that this is kind of a belabored point with Zach. There's not a lot to go off of, right? But I'll say this much. Something has to change organizationally with the Jets in order for them to break out of this slump. I don't know what it is. Is it ownership that's the problem? Is it the front office that's the problem? Is it the coach that's the problem? Is it somebody on the staff? Something needs to be shaken up. I don't know exactly who to blame, who is the major issue, what needs to happen, but something is wrong, non-player related, that needs to change the culture of that team. I would say that it probably starts at the top because they've gone through multiple GMs and quarterbacks and coaches over the last decade plus. And really, since that AFC run with Mark Sanchez in, what was it, 2009, they haven't been good.
Yeah.
And so I would say that look towards the top of the organization and then work your way down from there. But something needs to change, in the offseason, whether Zach's there, whether Aaron Rodgers comes back, all of that stuff. If the Jets don't want to be a bad team in 2024, something else needs to change, not just quarterback, not just players on the field. But Sam,
100%. Aaron Rodgers in the huddle, Aaron Rodgers on the football field does not change the terrible culture that the New York Jets have fostered for so many years. He might give them a little better chance to win in games, but that's not going to fix any of those problems. I agree.
All right, Sam, real quick. Game of the week next week for me, I'm going to say the Eagles versus the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football has to be the game that I want to see the most. 6:20 p.m. on Sunday night, KSL 5 TV. You can watch it there. That's a huge division game. Eagles are 10-2 coming off a loss to the 49ers where they got blown out. Cowboys are coming off a big win over the Seahawks, 9-3. It's going to be a big one, Sam. Who do you have next week?
I like that game too. I'm going to go with Bills and Chiefs, although I do like the Broncos-Chargers matchups. A little bit of playoff implications there as well with a division rivalry, but I'm going Bills-Chiefs, man. That matchup, I still believe that the Bills are better than what they've been recently. I still believe that Josh Allen is a great quarterback, and seeing that matchup between the Bills and Chiefs, that's gonna have my full attention on Sunday afternoon.
He's Sam Farnsworth. You can follow him on social media at Samsworth_TV. You can follow me at Kyle Ireland. And we'll be back again next week. I'm sure we're going to have a lot more to talk about. But until then, check out KSLSports.com and the KSL Sports app. This has been the Yards After College podcast powered by KSLSports.com.